Investigate.
Yay, and welcome to the Allens Investigate with me, Shona Allen.
And I'm Gary Allen, the Crockery Bard, and this is a Christmas special.
It is indeed. It's been a while as well. We missed you all.
Yeah.
But we're back.
We're back.
Okay, so today we're going to be investigating the origins of Christmas. So it has a very, very Christmassy theme today.
We're going to do different Father Christmas and all that, is it?
Oh, we might touch upon Father Christmas, yes. So while Christmas is primarily celebrated as a Christian holiday commemorating the birth of Jesus Christ, it also happens to coincide with the winter solstice, and this is where the origins lie. The winter solstice for the Northern Hemisphere takes place on usually the 22nd of December, reportedly when the Earth's axis tilts and is said to be furthest away from the sun. It is the shortest day of the year, a day with the shortest period of daylight and the longest night of the year. The word solstice comes from the Latin word solstitium, meaning a sun stands still, because the apparent movement of the sun's path stops and then reverses. It marks one of the 4 major way stations on the Earth's annual journey around the sun. One obvious reference, of course, to the cross symbol. On the day of the winter solstice, the sun has reached its lowest point in the sky. Once it's reached its lowest point, the sun appears to stop moving south for 3 days. It will then continue to move northward until the summer solstice, when it reaches its highest point. To ancient civilizations around the world, it was a time of great celebration as spring is coming. Since prehistory, the winter solstice has been a significant time of the year in many cultures across the world and has been marked by festivals and rituals as it marked the symbolic death and rebirth of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Ancient monuments such as Newgrange and Stonehenge, for example, are aligned with the sunrise or sunset of the winter solstice. The Karnak temple in Egypt witnesses the winter solstice sunrise, where the sun shines directly through the gap in the walls between the 2 pillars.
That's the sun entering the temple from the eastern entrance, pouring its beams on the temple's main axis, and then entering the Holy of Holies, which housed the deity Amon's statue. This is a very important time to the ancient Egyptians as they celebrated the rebirth of the sun. They set the length of the festival at 12 days to reflect the 12 divisions in their sun calendar. They decorated with greenery using palms with 12 shoots as a symbol of the completed year, as it was thought by them that a palm put forth a shoot each month. The midwinter festival of the ancient Egyptians celebrated the birth of Horus, anagram of hours, son of the divine goddess Isis. Mother goddess Isis. This concept took root in many other cultures, including Christianity. Church leaders proclaimed the 12 days from the 25th of December to the Epiphany as a sacred festive season. So that's interesting stuff, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And in ancient Rome, they celebrated this time the Saturnalia, a festival to the ancient god of seed sowing and agriculture, Saturn. The Roman people feasted and gave gifts and decorated their homes with greenery representing fertility. Saturn, in Roman mythology, was an agricultural deity who was said to have reigned over the world in the Golden Age, a time of great abundance and bounty of the earth without labour. According to Macrobius, a Latin writer from late antiquity, Saturnalia was a festival of light leading to the winter solstice, with the abundant presence of candles, symbolizes the quest for knowledge and truth. The renewal of light was later celebrated by the Romans as the Dies Natalis, Sol Invictus. birthday of the unconquerable sun, on the 25th of December, as the Roman Empire came from under the rule of
under the Christian rule of some of these earlier customs influencing the seasonal celebrations surrounding Christmas and New Year. Now, the ancients saw winter solstice as a turning point in the year, marking the start of regrowth of plants and crops as the sun returned. It was a time of great celebration of growth, nature, agriculture, and life over death. Macrobius, famous for his book about the Saturnalia, noted, "At the winter solstice, the sun would seem to be a little childlike, that which the Egyptians bring forth from a shrine on the appointed day. Since the day is then at its shortest, and the god is accordingly shown as a tiny infant." Plutarch also tells us that Harpocrates, from Hor par Kered, which means Horus the child, is born on the winter solstice. Early Christians chose the 25th of December date precisely because it was the winter solstice and was connected to the return of the light. 4th century church father John Chrysostom noted the conceptions of Jesus Christ and John the Baptist are on solstices and equinoxes. John the Baptist was understood to be preparing the way for Jesus, reference John 3:30 in the Bible. "He must increase, but I must decrease." Just as the sun begins to diminish at the summer solstice, then to increase at the winter solstice. In the Roman calendar, the 4 seasons were counted for equinox to solstice and from solstice to equinox, traditional turning points in the solar year. This can also be seen in the Battle of the Oak and the Holly Kings, 2 great kings, one dark, one light, who would heroically fight. The Holly King, the darker one, ruled winter and the dimming sun, while the Oak King ruled over summer, the sun's growing light. At summer solstice, the Holly King would be victorious and the Oak King grew weak. But at winter solstice, they would battle, and this time the Oak King would be victorious.
Yes, this allegory could also be seen in the ancient Egyptian account in the Battle of Set and Horus. In a more precise form was day and night. The carol, the Holly and the Ivy, clearly reflects this story. The holly and the ivy, when they were both full grown of all the trees that are in the wood, and the holly bears the crown, implies that holly is the lord of midwinter and the ivy as midsummer lord. In Anglo-Saxon Britain, well, I know a lot about that with the swearing and that, don't I? It was the mother who was honoured on the 24th of December, and the sacred tree was taken into the home and decorated. A representation of the world tree with the star at the top representing the pole star around which everything turned. A Yule log was lit as a symbol of the returning sun, and food and gifts were shared to the honour of the earth's abundance. The Hollykin has evolved into the present day Santa Claus. Ooh. Yes, did he come for you this year? Hope so.
He did indeed,
yeah.
Yes.
With influences from Norse mythology and an early Christian bishop, and Saint Nicholas from Lycia, but also embodies the characteristics of Saturn, the Roman agricultural god who honour the Saturnalia, had gift giving and feasting.
So you can kind of see where the name Santa comes from, can't you? Because it's quite similar.
Well, it is. It is similar, yeah. Grandfather Frost, Russian winter god, Odin, Wotan, Scandinavian, who rides the sky on a one-legged horse. Oh,
no, eight-legged horse.
How did he get about on an eight-legged horse? Knocked off 7 legs there. Anyway, never mind. The solar.
It was a disabled horse.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Well, it's good in this woke age, isn't it? The solar number of Sabbats are 8, or seasonal festivals during the wheel of the year. We must remember, to the ancients who were far more connected to the earth and sky, that their very existence relied upon successful sowing and harvesting of food, as to not starve. Sol, the Lithuanian goddess of light and sun, took to the skies on winter solstice in a sleigh pulled by horned reindeer. Now that sounds familiar to me, doesn't it? You, Bewi or Biwi is a sun goddess of the Sami, the indigenous people of the Nordic countries.
I think you probably pronounced that wrong.
What? Never.
Never mind. Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. Carry on.
Well, I'm waiting for you and I. You go. She flies through the
Heavens. On the winter solstice, she flies through the heavens in a ring of reindeer antlers, flinging fertility back onto the land. So we can see this recurrent theme, can't we, of fertility here.
Yeah.
Long before Santa had his sleigh pulled by 9 reindeer originally.
9?
Yes, but originally it was 8. But in 1939, when Rudolph came on the scene, thus it became 9. It was female reindeer who drew the sleigh of the sun goddess at winter solstice. The male reindeer sheds his antlers in winter. It is the doe who retains her antlers, and it is she who leads the herd in winter. So that's quite interesting.
Do we know where we got the red nose, or not yet?
Too much sherry.
Been on the beer, yeah.
Oh dear, all those mince pies and glasses of sherry
absolutely,
left them.
absolutely.
Anyway, the red and white of Santa, which is quite interesting, the red and white colours, isn't it? Is thought to have originated in part from Siberian legends in which the reindeer took flight each winter after ingesting the hallucinogenic Amanita muscaria mushroom, or fly agaric, as it's more commonly known in this country, the archetypal red toadstool with white spots. And interestingly, you see this mushroom depicted quite a lot with fairies and things, don't you?
You do, yeah.
Shaman would partake of the ingesting of these mushrooms and also take flight or vision quest. It was interestingly the female shamans who originally wore red and white costumes trimmed with fur, headdresses with horns, or red felt hats. Red and white are also the colours associated with matter and spirit, which is quite interesting. In the biblical Christmas story, the star in the east is Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, which on December 24th aligns with the 3 brightest stars in Orion's belt. The 3 bright stars are called the 3 kings. The 3 kings and the brightest star Sirius all point to the place of the sunrise on December 25th, the birth of the new sun. The star Sirius to the ancient Egyptians represented Isis, the virgin mother goddess, and Orion was the resting place of Osiris, god of rebirth and afterlife. Their son was Horus the infant, who represented the newborn sun. Now, something I think that might be noteworthy as well and worth mentioning are the Mert goddesses, or merry sisters, Isis and Nephthys. Isis, aka Sirius, was called Star of the Sea, so it's referring to the star in the sky. Isis bore as well the epithet of merry, or merry, and spelt M-E-R-I or M-E-R-Y, meaning beloved.
Beloved.
Sounds a bit like Mary, doesn't it?
Beloved.
And etymologically speaking, if I stick my teeth in, actually there is some evidence to suggest Egypt is indeed the origin of the name Mary. So that's quite interesting. Now, Nephthys, Isis's sister, was seen as a protective goddess who symbolizes the death experience, and Isis represented the birth experience. Also associated with the equinoxes, interestingly, but it also has a relevant esoteric meaning as well. And I would encourage you to go and have a look, because I think it's quite relevant and interesting. Now, if you haven't come across the mythology of Osiris and Isis, in brief, Osiris's brother Set sealed Osiris in a sealed coffin and threw it into the river Nile. It wasn't very nice, was it?
Not really, no.
Sometimes it can be a coffin as well.
It's a coffin in Freemasonry,
in Freemasonry, yes. So it's either a chest or a coffin.
Yeah.
Now, Isis eventually finds the coffin where it's washed ashore alongside a tamarisk tree in Byblos, which grew around the coffin.
Yeah, that was where the tree was cut down and made into a pillar for King Malkander's palace in Byblos, where Osiris eventually died trapped inside the tree. The widow Isis, is that the widow's son, maybe? I don't know. The widow Isis finds and rescues her dead husband. However, Set finds it and chops Osiris's body into pieces, scattering it across Egypt to prevent Isis from healing him. Healing him, yes.
Healing, yes.
Yes, healing him. Isis, together with her sister Nephthys, find all but one of his parts, that being his phallus. Good God. And Isis restores her husband's body and fashions a golden phallus just long enough to conceive a son, Horus. Osiris then descends to the underworld. Osiris was a symbol of life and death associated with resurrection and the afterlife. He is usually depicted with green skin representing the Nile, with its annual flooding and withdrawal. Yes.
Which is interesting as well, because if you think about the Green Man and its association.
Well, and Santa Claus was originally green, wasn't he?
Well, to some.
A representation of Pan, yes.
To some.
That's very interesting anyway. So the annual growth and rebirth of vegetation, but also the soul's immortality and regeneration beyond the grave. So we can see that the winter solstice is a drama of the birth, death, and resurrection of the sun mirrored on earth in vegetation and in truth in us. Of note, Orion, the giant hunter in the sky constellation, was called by the Aramaeans, Nephilia.
No,
What? Nephila. And those Nephilim were Orion's descendants. Yes. If Orion is a constellation, that gives us a clue as to what is meant by Nephilim. The stars.
Exactly.
Not easy to say that, is it? Not for an Eastender, anyway.
So it's quite an interesting point, though, isn't it? Because, you know, there are various different kind of ideas about Nephilim being, from the biblical standpoint, they talk about giants. But then if you associate it with Orion was known as a giant. So perhaps we can see where this idea has come from.
What, the giants?
Exactly.
They talk about in the Bible.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm.
So I think perhaps that might be worth having a little look at.
Yeah. What about the Christmas tree?
Oh, the Christmas tree, yes. Trees and greenery in general were used to decorate homes. Ancient Egypt being one of the oldest sources we have, where they would deck houses at the time of the winter solstice with branches of the date palm, as we previously mentioned.
Mm.
The symbol of life triumphant over death, and therefore of perennial life and renewal each year. Now, ancient Celtic Druids believed the evergreen was sacred and represented everlasting life because it didn't shed any leaves, and because the deciduous did, obviously.
Oh, that's an odd word, deciduous.
Deciduous.
I'm glad I didn't have to read that.
I decided on deciduous.
Oh, Lord.
They used evergreen, holly and mistletoe to decorate temples. In ancient Rome, winter solstice was marked with the Saturnalia, again, as we've mentioned, to honour Saturn, the god of agriculture. Homes and temples were decorated with boughs of evergreen because the winter solstice meant crops would grow again in the coming year. All very interesting, isn't it?
So we're getting some sort of good and bad theme here, aren't we? That runs right through it.
Well, predominantly, I see it as being good because it's all about nature and, you know, the
birth and regrowth
the
and
coming
resurrection,
year of greenery and, of course, food. Because if we didn't have new growth, we would have no food to eat. So it was incredibly important to the ancients. But also equally, there is also an esoteric meaning. So there's an inward and an outward meaning. But I think we'll do that for another program. But ancient Celtic Druids believed the evergreen was sacred and represented everlasting life because they didn't shed its leaves like the deciduous, as I've previously said. So the evergreen to them is an ancient symbol of rebirth and everlasting life. So we can see that all life, including ourselves, is everlasting. And as we already know, in science, energy is neither formed nor destroyed, is it? It is forever. In the 4th month of flood, Kayak, which lasted between the 10th of December to the 8th of January, ancient Egyptians performed the raising of Osiris, Now think of raising Lazarus or Orion rising.
Mm.
In the form of a tamarisk evergreen, annually on or about December 21st, which was representative of the rebirth of Osiris and an astrotheological representation of raising of Orion constellation and raising the Djed pillar. In the book Dawn al-Damia, Egyptologist James Priested tells the story of Isis's return to the tree that contained the body of Osiris. The Lord returned to the life resurrected after death, a green tree. As a result, this, a beautiful holiday, is held every year as a reminder of that occasion, and by raising an uprooted tree and planting it in the ground in a great forum. It was beautiful, and that tree is the one descended to us in the form of the feast that we are still holding today and adoring it with joy and dancing.
Mm.
William Nazir, in his Egyptian Customs Yesterday and Today, said, "The Egyptians believe that Osiris was the force that provides them with life and gives them food in the world, and that it is the black earth that brings green life. So they drew it, and the grain of grains came out of his body. As they symbolized the renewed life with the green tree, they set up a tree in which they plant and decorate it with jewelry, as people do today with the Christmas tree."
Putting the balls on the tree and all that, isn't it? And the angel at the top and all that.
Get your baubles out. That's right.
Don't do that, dear, not on the show. Oh dear. I've lost my concentration.
Have you? Shall I continue then?
What we're going on about now about Virgin Mary, aren't we?
Well, yes, we're going to touch on the Virgin Mary allegory here. So the Virgin Mary can be associated with the constellation of Virgo. Virgo in Latin means virgin. Virgo was also referred to as the house of bread, and representations of Virgo show a virgin maiden holding a sheath of wheat. The house of bread and its symbol of wheat represents August and September, the time of harvest, which obviously is a very important time again, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Bethlehem literally translates to house of bread. Ooh. So it is then a reference to the constellation Virgo, a place in the sky. During the perceivable 3-day pause of the sun at winter solstice, the sun resides in the vicinity of the Southern Cross. After this time, on December 25th, the sun moves 1 degree north, telling of warmer, longer days again and spring returning. So it was said the sun died on the cross, was dead for 3 days, only to be resurrected or born again.
Oh, I have seen it walk on water too, the sun. Have you? Yeah.
Indeed. Now, Attis is another interesting one as well. He was a mythical consort of the great mother of the gods, Cybele, who was said to have been born on December 25th to a virgin. He was primarily a vegetation god. His self-mutilation, death, and resurrection represented the fruits of the earth, which die in winter only to rise again in the spring. After his death by self-mutilation, he was said to have been changed into a pine tree.
Goodness me.
So it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because if you think about the Cybele priests, and they were eunuchs. So
I beg your pardon?
They were physically demonstrating something, really, weren't they? Which was really meant to be allegorical.
Sounds a bit painful, that, doesn't it?
Yes. A spring festival was held for Cybele and Attis on 22nd of March, spring equinox. A pine tree was cut in the woods and brought into the sanctuary of Cybele, where it was treated as a great divinity. Pine cones are found depicted with winged gods holding them. Dionysus, later known as Bacchus to the Romans, was known to carry a staff topped with a pine cone called a thyrsus. Twice as nice as my
yes, Nisus indeed.
The pine cone was also found on the Egyptian staff of Osiris, which depicts intertwining serpents representing the male-female energies. There is also a pine cone, interestingly, on the Pope's staff, if you've ever noticed. The largest pine cone in the world is a bronze sculpture located in Vatican Square in the courtyard of the pine cone. It is confirmed the pine cone was part of an overflowing fountain next to the temple of Isis. The pine cone represents immortality, fertility, and regeneration. The fruit or seed of the evergreen, immortality, which is the secret of life.
Very interesting.
Mm.
But it seems to me that all the ancients and everything and Christianity and everything is all rolled into one, isn't it, really?
Well, I think it's safe to say that all religions across the world have a seed of truth, and it's
Yeah.
the same seed of truth.
Yeah, exactly.
My opinion, obviously, but from what I've found, that's certainly it. Now, Alban Athwan is quite an interesting one as well. It's one of the Druidic fire festivals taking place on the 21st to 22nd of December, coinciding with the winter solstice.
Winter solstice, yeah.
Translated, it means the light of Arthur.
Oh.
So we're thinking King Arthur.
King
here.
Arthur, yeah.
In reference to the Arthurian legend that King Arthur was born on the winter solstice. Oh, another one. On the winter solstice.
Hang on a minute.
Interesting, isn't it? Alban Athwan is also known as Yule, derived from the Anglo-Saxon Eula, or wheel of the year.
Cool.
And marked the celebration of both the shortest day of the year and the rebirth of the sun. The custom of burning the Yule log was performed to honour the great mother goddess. Decorating the Yule tree was also originally a pagan custom. Brightly coloured decorations were hung on the tree, usually an evergreen pine, to symbolise the various stellar objects that were of significance to the pagans, i.e. the sun, moon and stars, but also to represent the souls who'd passed away. The modern tradition of gift giving came from the pagan tradition of hanging gifts on the Yule tree as offerings to gods and goddesses. So that's an interesting one next time Timmy's opening his present.
Yeah.
Under the tree. King Arthur is an allegory of the sun, his 12 knights of the round table being signs of the zodiac on the round zodiac table. Now, interestingly, on what was it called now? The Python program, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, on the film.
Yes.
You see Graham Chapman playing King Arthur, and on his tabard, what does he have? A big golden sun.
Sort of giving the clue away, really,
just
isn't
a
it?
bit,
Yeah.
We also have 12 hours on a clock face, 12 months
So
of the year.
hours, Horus. Yeah,
And
anagram, isn't it?
Also, if you think about sunset, Set, the Egyptian god, sunset.
Yes.
So Horus on the horizon was the newborn sun, which was in the east, and Set when the sun sets in the west, which then plunges all into darkness, doesn't it? So I think that should give you a clue.
By Joe, I think you've got some.
So anyway, you have the 12 disciples of Jesus, the 12 tribes. In the Egyptian book of Amduat, the lower register, Horus is depicted with 12 star gods.
Exactly.
And of course, we have the 12 labours of Hercules.
Yeah.
Hercules is the sun travelling through the 12 zodiac signs.
Yeah.
So we also have Mithras.
Born on the 25th of December. So that's one day before my birthday. And was depicted with 12 companions or signs of the zodiac. And in January we have, well, you better say that because
Perihelion.
Yeah, that's him. The time when Earth is closest to the sun.
I'm going to have to take you to elocution lessons, aren't I?
What?
Anyway, it's the time when the Earth is closest to the sun.
Yeah.
Usually occurring any time between the 2nd to the 6th of January.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the listeners prefer to hear your beautiful voice as opposed to my Cockney. I can't quite get rid of the old, I try to, but I can't quite get rid of it. So yeah, but yeah, what it's all saying, isn't it? Really, what it's all saying is that it's written in the stars, isn't it? No matter what you follow.
And perihelion, just getting back to that for a minute. Peri means near, and helion stems from the Greek word helios, for the sun. To the Romans, winter solstice was on the 25th of December, so perihelion would have occurred around January the 6th, the same as the Christian Epiphany.
Mm.
An epiphany being another Greek word for to manifest or to show. And coincidentally, the same date as the so-called insurrection that we've been hearing quite a lot about.
Was that thing in America, was it?
So it's interesting, isn't it, that quite a lot of these happenings occur on particular dates.
Yeah, they do.
Coincidence or something else?
Yeah.
Thus it is in the Christmas festivities, religion and traditions we see that they are rooted in and inspired by this same seed of truth. So it's all about nature. It's about the movement of the sun and the stars and the planets. It's all about nature.
Yeah.
But as there is an exoteric meaning, equally there's an esoteric meaning an inner secret meaning, which I won't tell you about today, but look it up because it's very, very interesting. Yeah. So it's the old as above, so below. As within, so without, isn't it? So all of these stories, really, these ancient traditions teach us that the importance of the drama of the yearly cycle, the light of the sun returning and thus the regeneration of vegetation and crops, but also, as I mentioned, on an esoteric level, in that in us all, the light that resides in us all, life itself, is eternal.
So it's quite interesting. I mean, you know, in the church in Elsham, there is a window, a church window, that has the cross, and it has a serpent on the cross, and it's most unusual, isn't it? I mean, you don't see that every day, but well,
it's representing
symbolic of wisdom, isn't it?
The Neshustan, isn't it, in the Bible?
Yeah.
So it's the serpent on the cross, but it does have an interesting meaning, and it would also draw your attention to, you know, the raising of the dead pillar again, wouldn't it? So it's quite. So
I think there's a lot for people to take in what we've said today, but
and it may be shocking for some as well, and we certainly don't mean to offend or shock anybody, but you have to be honest and in search of truth, and we're always in search of truth. We're all on a journey, all of us, every single one of us, and I think that we should be open-minded in that journey, and if some interesting information comes forward, we should certainly consider it.
Well, I think the main thing is that people have to look and do some research and realize that everything is written in the stars. So, well, we come to the end of the show, but please look us up on www.thecockneybard.com. And I'm Gary Allen, the Cockney Bard, and this is my wife, Shona Allen. Bye for now. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.